Today, and today we are discussing 10 books you need to read if you're a hopeless romantic like me. 10 books you need to read if you are a die-hard hopeless romantic like me. Okay. Welcome back, beautiful people. It's been a while. I actually recorded this whole video the other day, and I was trying to be cute and quirky, and I was trying to film it so that it looked like I was on Zoom. And guess what? I recorded the whole thing without audio. Very much a Celia kind of thing to do. But so we are re-recording this video, and you know, it's gonna be even better than the first one because now I have this fun microphone, and it's called the Blue Snowball, and I feel so professional, me with my little microphone. So today, my dearest viewers, we are talking about 10 books you need to read if you are a hopeless romantic like me. And I have read all these books. I can attest to the fact that they will make you feel something, and some of them may even rip your heart apart. So I have divided them into certain categories. Some of them don't necessarily completely fit the category, but that's how we are doing it. And so we are going to start with, which ones should we start with? We are going to start with one of the first books I read, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this book, you know, we're already off to a bad start. Oh God. Okay. I'm just going to read the backs of these books, and then I'm going to kind of say a little bit of why I personally think you need to read them, just because I have not completely memorized the entire synopsis of all these books, and I don't want to be rambling for 20 minutes about each book, so we are going to condense them by just reading the beautiful synopsis that is already in the back. So, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Get it together, Celia. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination, from making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s and, of course, the 7 husbands along the way. Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to stop there. Because this book, it's a real page turner. You just want to find out what happens. And I think you really don't expect a lot of the things that happens. I did not expect the plot twist that happened in this book. And you need to read it. Is this my favorite book of the 10 that I'm going to show you? No, not necessarily, but I don't think I'm going to go in order of my least favorite to most favorite, although it might happen that way, but I will tell you which ones are my favorite. This was not my favorite, but I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars because I think it's a really interesting story, and I think it was written really well, and it definitely had me grasping the pages to find out what happened. And Evelyn Hugo, honestly, I thought she was a real person. I think the way she's written in this book really just gives the illusion that she's a real person, and you could search her up on Instagram and find out all about her husbands, but she's not a real person. She's a fictional character that I've become attached to. Anyways, number 1, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. First book that you should read if you're a hopeless romantic, because the love story in there is intense. It will grasp at your heart, and also the way that heartbreak is explained in this story, it's it will have you in tears. I might even be in tears talking about some of these books. Alas, let's move on to the next book, shall we? So that we're not here for hours and hours. Although I could talk about these books for hours and hours, which is hilarious because I have not read for fun. I had not read for fun since I was 12 years old, and now I'm 22. I started reading for fun again in December, and I am hooked. I have read so many books. So much of my money has gone to buying books, and I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Anyways, let's go to the next category, which I'm going to just call this one Friends to Lovers, although normal people, not necessarily friends to lovers, but we're gonna start with that. Normal People by Sally Rooney first. First of all, look at this cover. This cover, I have taken so many pictures of this book because the cover is just exceptional. It also has the outline of faces, which I didn't notice at first, and I just think it's probably the best cover out of all these books because it's just so beautiful and so aesthetic. So this book, Normal People by Sally Rooney. It's about Connell and Marianne, who grew up in the same small town, but the similarities end there. At school, Connell is popular and well-liked, while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. Normal People is a story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from the first conversation to the years beyond, in the company of two people who try to stay apart, but find that they can't. So this book, honestly, when I first read this book, I didn't really like it. I was ready to give it like a 3 out of 5 stars. I was like, it was good. It wasn't great. And then I watched the series. And the series so beautifully exhibits what the book was trying to show. But I would not watch the series without reading the book. Because I think a lot of things go unspoken in the series. And I think after watching the series, it really showed the complete depth of the characters. The way that love is shown in this book isn't as necessarily as extraordinary or as crazy electrifying as it may be portrayed in some of the other books I'm going to mention, but it's just a very tender love, and it's a love that kind of like engulfs you into it. It makes you feel like you're also a part of it, and makes you feel like somebody could also care about you in that way, which the series tore me apart. And there's just to give you an example, one of my all-time favorite quotes comes from this book. Not my very all-time favorite quote. That will come later. And where is it? Usually I try to mark up my favorite quotes in books, unless I really, really love a book, in which case I can't bring myself to mark it up because I think it will mess up its beauty somehow. So at some point, the male character says, Marianne, I'm not a religious person, but I do sometimes think God made you for me. I mean, wow. Wow, wow, wow. If somebody said that to me, I would be in tears. Anyways, Normal People by Sally Rooney, number 2. Now we're going to go into Emily Henry territory, which people we meet on vacation. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally am ambivalent about it. People we meet on vacation is another friends to lovers trope. And it's about Poppy and Alex. Alex and Poppy. They have nothing in common. She's a wild child. He wears khakis. She has insatiable wanderlust. He prefers to stay home with a book. And somehow, ever since a fateful car share home from college many years ago, they are the very best of friends. For most of the year, they live far apart. She's in New York City, and he's in their small hometown. But every summer, for a decade, they have taken one glorious week of vacation together. Until 2 years ago, when they ruined everything. They haven't spoken since. This book low-key had me in a chokehold, but not completely, because I wanted to know what happened between them, but I didn't necessarily feel that connected to the characters. I will say, I love Poppy, but not as much as I love another Poppy that will come up in another story. But it's very heartwarming. It's very heartwarming. However, People We Meet on Vacation has nothing on Beach Read, and if you are one of those people that think that People We Meet on Vacation is better, that's your choice, and I respect it. But Beach Read is the superior choice from Emily Henry novels. And Beach Read, this one, now we're getting into enemies to lovers territory. And friends to lovers is my favorite trope. But for some reason, enemies to lovers in books just... Beach Read. Beach Read is about Augustus Everett, who is an acclaimed author of literary fiction, and January Andrews, who writes best-selling romance. When she pens a happily ever after he kills off his entire cast. They're polar opposites. In fact, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months, they're living in neighboring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block. Then one hazy evening, one thing leads to another. ... I'm not going to finish the synopsis because you need to read the book. But this, it goes way further than just showcasing a love story. And it deals with grief, and it deals with loss, and it deals with all these feelings that come with growing up and not necessarily having things work out the way that you thought they would, which being a 22-year-old post-grad really hits home. And it's this book, if I explained it in 4 words, I would say in 5 words. If I explain this book in 5 words, I would say feels like a warm hug. It will have you crying though. I did probably sob at some point. Anyways, next we are gonna go to Love Hypothesis. And this book, it has a special place in my heart because I have a biology degree and it's very sciencey. Each chapter actually starts out with a hypothesis. So, for example, chapter number 1. The hypothesis is, when given a choice between A, a slightly inconveniencing situation, and B, a colossal shit show with devastating consequences, I will inevitably end up selecting B. Same. Anyways, synopsis. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood is about Olive Smith, who is a third-year PhD candidate and doesn't believe in lasting romantic relationships, but her best friend does, and that's what got her into this situation. Convincing Anne that Olive is dating and well on her way to happily ever after was always going to take more than hand-wavy Jedi mind tricks. Scientists require proof. So like any self-respecting biologist, Olive panics and kisses the first man she sees. And who is that? That happens to be Adam Carlson, a young hotshot professor and a well-known ass. And to find out the rest, you need to read the book. But this book, I'm just going to preface and say that a lot of these books are very spicy in some situations. So if you're not of age, maybe don't read them. Maybe don't read them. This is one of those books. Spicy. I really liked it. I think he calls her sweetheart at a lot of points, and I don't know, it felt very heartwarming. And I would consider this enemies to lovers because they are very much polar opposites, and it's very endearing. It's very heartwarming, and if you're a person in STEM, you will probably like this book because I love this book. And they also talk about a lot of like scientific experiments and techniques. So there's that. Now we are going to go to the epitome of enemies to lovers, which is The Hating Game. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, which also happens to be a book, which also happens to be a movie that I will probably watch this weekend at some point, and I will most likely react all about it on my Instagram story, because if you don't follow me on Instagram, you should, at Tia Celia with 3 A's. I'll put it somewhere on the screen, maybe. Somewhere around here. You should definitely follow me because I post all my book reactions in real time as I'm reading them, and a lot of them have me ugly crying with mascara running down my face. But así pasa a veces en el amor, en la soledad. Al ser un lector, a veces pasa así. The little R. Oh my god, someone's gonna say this is ASMR. This is not an ASMR channel. Guys, the 2 languages that I speak are all colliding in my brain, making it exceptionally hard to speak right now. If you're bilingual, you can relate. The Hating Game. Also a movie. I watched the trailer to the movie after I finished the book, and the main male character in the movie does not resemble what I wished he would from the book. So I feel like I might be disappointed, but hopefully not. But The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Lucy Hutton and Joshua Templeman hate each other, not dislike, not begrudgingly tolerate, hate. And they have no problems displaying their feelings through a series of ritualistic passive-aggressive maneuvers as they sit across from each other, executive assistants to co-CEOs of a publishing company. Lucy can't understand Joshua's joyless, uptight, meticulous approach to his job. Joshua is clearly baffled by Lucy's overly bright colors, quirkiness, and Pollyanna attitude. I don't know what Pollyanna means. Anyways, essentially, this book, the two characters are assistants to CEOs. They're sitting in the same room. Basically, there's two CEOs because there was two different companies that went through a merger. The two companies were essentially polar opposites in their work environment. One was kind of just like a very happy environment, very carefree, and one was a little more uptight corporate, and they combine. And the two CEOs despise each other. The two assistants hate each other, and they're just very different people. And because this is an enemies to lovers story, ... read the rest of the book. This book, so many plot twists. I was not expecting a lot of the plot twists. Well, actually, no. I did expect some, but the way everything happens is pretty satisfying, I would say. But again, another one of those B of H kind of books. And next, the final one of our enemies to lovers books is The Unhoneymooners, which is one of the ones I've read most recently. But The Unhoneymooners, this book essentially is about... I'll just read the synopsis. I don't want to forget anything. Oh my god. The Unhoneymooners. So we have Olive Torres is used to being the unlucky twin. From inexplicable mishaps to a recent layoff, her life seems to be almost comically jinxed. By contrast, her sister Amy is an eternal champion. She even managed to finance her entire wedding by winning a slew of contests. Unfortunately for Olive, the only thing worse than constant bad luck is having to spend the wedding day with the best man and her nemesis, Ethan Thomas. Okay. This book, essentially. So we have the set of twins. So the lucky twin, who is Amy is marrying a guy whose brother is Ethan. And Olive, the twin of the girl getting married, is nemesis with the groom's brother. Nemesis? Does that make sense? I'm all over the place. Essentially, there's people that are getting married, and their respective siblings hate each other. And the day of the wedding, everybody somehow manages to get ridiculously bad food poisoning, except the two people that hate each other. And because it's a wedding, there was going to be a honeymoon, and the bride is essentially like, hey, this honeymoon is unrefundable. I need someone to go. It's in Hawaii. And she sends her twin sister, and they also send the groom's brother. And they have to spend the honeymoon together. And... ... You need to read the rest of the book to see what happens. But this book had so many plot twists. It had so many... I read this one in less than 24 hours because I was so unbelievably hooked. I don't understand how there could be so many plot twists. But, oh my god, my camera is dying. I don't know what number that is. But next we're going to get into Miss Colleen Hoover territory. And Colleen Hoover rips me apart. Every single book of hers that I've read 3 books of hers, and every single book has torn me apart. But we are only going to include 2 in this set of Hopeless Romantic. There could be more. It Ends With Us should probably be included in this, but for right now, these 2 are my favorite Colleen Hoover books so far. So we're going to start with All Your Perfects. Actually, we're going to start with All Your Perfects. And this book... It's hard to read because it's told in one of those past to present kind of... It's hard to read in that it's emotionally hard to read. It goes from past to present, and it's really hard to read because in the past they're falling in love, and then in the present they're dealing with infertility, and their marriage is essentially falling apart, and you're just like, you were so in love, like what happened? Like what happened to you guys? And so the back of the book says, can a love story with a perfect beginning survive a lifetime between 2 imperfect people? Then, the last thing Quinn expected was to meet the love of her life just outside her fiancé's front door. A year after leaving behind their cheating partners, Quinn and Graham are in a perfect relationship that seems designed by fate. Now, 7 years later, their perfect love is threatened by their imperfect marriage. The memories, mistakes, and dreams that they have built over the years are tearing them apart. The one thing that could save them might also be the very thing that pushes their marriage past the point of no return. And I love the male character in this book. Graham is just... I love that character. He's just so... He makes me, like... He's such a sweet guy, and he's just so... They're both very imperfect people. I think this shows the complexity of a relationship. Very similar to how Ugly Love shows the complexity of a relationship. But this book had me sobbing. And there's a quote in here. I'm not sure if I outlined it. The quote is essentially like, even though we're on opposite sides of the war, he refuses to pick up his weapons. That should be enough to convince you to read this book. It broke me. It broke me. And now we're going to get into my 2 all-time favorite books as of today. Next week, I don't know, maybe I'll have another favorite book. But the first one is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Some people hate this book. I absolutely adored it. I did not expect what happened. The plot twist broke me, but it's not exactly love at first sight for Tay Collins when she meets the tormented and secretive Miles Archer. They wouldn't even go so far as to consider themselves friends. The only thing Tate and Miles have in common is a mutual physical attraction that can't be denied. Once their desires are out in the open, they realize they might have stumbled on the perfect no-strings attachment. He isn't looking for love, and she doesn't have time for it, so that leaves just the spiciness. What they've got could be surprisingly satisfying, as long as Tay can stick to 2 rules Miles has for her. Never ask about the past, and don't expect the future. They think they can handle it, but everything is different when real emotions start to change the equation. Hearts get infiltrated, promises get broken, rules get shattered, love gets ugly. This book, I read it on Christmas Day, broke me, destroyed me, absolutely destroyed me. I was sobbing. I don't know how to explain it other than it's kind of like brother's best friend. It's kind of enemies to lovers, but not really. It's kind of friends to lovers, but not really, because they're not friends, they're not really enemies. It's like friends with benefits, but again, they're not friends. But there's the plot twist in this. You need to read the book. You need to read the book. This is my favorite Colleen Hoover book so far. 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I finished this last night. It had me sobbing. It had me absolutely sobbing. And the back of the book says, 1 kiss lasts a moment, but 1,000 kisses can last a lifetime. 1 boy, 1 girl. A bond that is forged in an instant and cherished for a decade. A bond that neither time nor distance can break. A bond that will last forever. Or so they believe. When 17-year-old Rune Christensen returns from his native Norway to the sleepy town of Blossom Grove, Georgia, where he befriended Poppy Litchfield as a child, he has just one thing on his mind. Why did the girl who was one half of his soul, who promised to wait faithfully for his return, cut him off without a word of explanation? Rune's heart was broken 2 years ago when Poppy fell silent. When he discovers the truth, he finds that the greatest heartache is yet to come. And heartache, this book shows love in its absolute purest form. There's no other way to explain it. If you're a hopeless romantic, this is the number 1 book you need to read. And it does kind of, it shows like a teenage love. These people aren't adults. They're very much teenagers. But the way that they experience love is probably stronger than a lot of adults will ever experience, I will say. And it's just so absolutely pure, so absolutely tender. And literally, I kept a bookmark in here, even though I've already finished the book, because I want to remind myself to read it, because it's one of those books that I know that I can reread it at any time, and it's a book that, it's just so wonderful. It's so absolutely wonderful. The quote from this book that most deeply touched my hopeless romantic soul was, the main character says, ... Love was simply the tenacity to make sure that the other half of your heart knew he or she was adored in every way, in every minute of every day, that love was tenderness in its purest form. Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you got ideas for books to read if you are a hopeless romantic. These are 10 books that you need to read if you're a hopeless romantic like me. And I love all these books so deeply. Please check certain trigger warnings for any books that you read, especially Colleen Hoover books. She writes about some very heavy topics and some very serious topics. So please check any trigger warnings of any books that you read. Please make sure you are of age to read some of these books, because they got some very spicy scenes. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, watching this video, and thank you so much for being on this planet. And I'm very happy that you're here, and I'm very happy that you spent this time with me talking about some of my favorite books. And does this make me a booktuber now? Am I a booktuber? I don't know. I hope this video wasn't all over the place. I hope it wasn't too rambly, and I hope that I convinced you to read one of these books, or to just read any book, because all these books have convinced me to love reading again, and I hope they convince you to love reading again. And I hope that they make you feel happy and loved, and that they make you believe in love again if you don't believe in love, or they make you continue to be a super uber hopeless romantic like me. Anyways, with that, I'm gonna go and probably read another book now. Anyways, goodbye. Oh god, all the books are falling. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Oh my gosh, this is a mess.
I tried to